Oh God! It's inside! It broke through! Someone's down! Oh no, it's...
Doug, English, and Jenny Gus weren't just weekend warriors. They were seasoned veterans of the wilderness, people who spoke the language of the mountains fluently. They knew the subtle shifts in the wind, the telltale signs of animal activity, the rhythms of the land itself. This wasn't a hobby for them. It was a deep, abiding connection. A conversation with nature carried out over decades of shared experience, and their preparation reflected that expertise. Maps meticulously studied, routes planned with painstaking detail, gear chosen with an eye towards both functionality and weight. Everything was considered, anticipated, accounted for. They weren't reckless adventurers chasing a thrill. They were responsible stewards, treading lightly and leaving no trace. Doug, with his methodical approach and unwavering attention to detail, always double-checked everything. Jenny, with her keen observational skills and intuitive understanding of the natural world, anticipated potential problems before they even arose. Together, they were a formidable team, perfectly complementing each other's strengths. But their deep respect for nature didn't stem from fear, it stemmed from love. They found solace in the solitude, inspiration in the vastness, and a profound sense of peace in the raw, untamed beauty of the backcountry. It was a place to reconnect with themselves, with each other, and with something larger than themselves. Their home in Lethbridge provided the basics. The Red Deer Valley held their souls, and always by their side was Triss, their loyal border collie. More than just a pet, Triss was a part of their family. A seasoned hiker in her own right, with boundless energy and an unwavering devotion. Her keen senses and alert nature provided an extra layer of security, a watchful presence that put their minds at ease. Triss seemed to instinctively understand the rules of the wilderness, moving silently and respectfully, always aware of her surroundings. In late September of 2023, Doug and Jenny began preparations for what they expected to be another unforgettable trek. This time, their destination was the Red Deer River Valley, a remote and pristine wilderness nestled in the northeastern reaches of Banff National Park. A week-long circular route, designed to immerse them in the heart of the backcountry, far from the crowds and the noise of civilization. Their gear was meticulously organized. Dehydrated meals carefully measured and sealed, ensuring they had enough sustenance for the entire trip without carrying unnecessary weight. Their trusty satellite communicator, fully charged and tested, a vital lifeline to the outside world in case of emergency. And of course, their bear spray, strategically placed within easy reach, a critical tool for deterring potential encounters with wildlife. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a carefully planned and executed expedition, the culmination of years of experience and a deep understanding of the risks and rewards of backcountry travel. Everything pointed to a safe and successful trip, a quiet, solitary escape into the wilderness they loved so dearly. The Red Deer River Valley. The very name conjures images of towering peaks, emerald forests, and crystal clear waters. A place where the air is clean and crisp, and the silence is broken only by the gentle murmur of the river and the rustle of leaves in the wind. It's a landscape that humbles and inspires, a reminder of the raw, untamed power of nature. But beneath the surface of this idyllic paradise, a hidden danger lurked, an unseen threat that would shatter the peace and tranquility of the valley forever. Because while Doug and Jenny meticulously planned their every step, nature had its own plans, and those plans were about to collide in a way that no one could have foreseen. The valley itself is a testament to the power of time and the forces of nature. Carved by glaciers and sculpted by wind and water, it's a landscape of contrasts, from the rugged peaks that scrape the sky to the lush meadows that carpet the valley floor. A haven for wildlife, it's home to a diverse array of creatures, from elk and deer to wolves and bears. For Doug and Jenny, the Red Deer River Valley held a special allure. It was a place where they could truly disconnect from the pressures of modern life and reconnect with the natural world. A place where they could challenge themselves physically and mentally, pushing their limits and discovering new levels of resilience. They envisioned days spent hiking through pristine forests, navigating challenging terrain, and soaking in the breathtaking views. They imagined evenings spent around a crackling campfire, sharing stories, and marveling at the star-filled sky. They looked forward to the solitude, the silence, and the deep sense of peace that only the wilderness can provide. What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly have known, was that this trip would be different, that something was waiting for them in the shadows, something hungry, unpredictable, and utterly relentless. The seemingly perfect backcountry trek was about to become a nightmare, a descent into a darkness from which they would never return. They were equipped for anything but fate. But in Banff, the peace is only surface deep. What feels serene can shift in a moment, and in the autumn months, that shift often begins with a subtle change in the wind. A quiet whisper of movement, too soft for most to notice, until it's already too late. By the time Doug, Jenny, and Triss entered the Red Deer River Valley, Parks Canada had already been monitoring unusual bear activity. It was late September, and the backcountry was entering what wildlife experts call hyperphagia, the seasonal feeding frenzy where bears, driven by instinct, relentlessly gorge themselves in preparation for hibernation. It's more than just hunger. It's a biological imperative. Food becomes obsession. Boundaries blur. Even typically cautious grizzlies become unpredictable in the weeks leading up to Doug and Jenny's hike. Subtle notices were posted at rangers urged hikers to exercise extreme caution. Word-of-mouth warnings filtered through the local backpacking community, especially regarding the remote areas like the Red Deer River Valley. There had been several reports of bear encounters, non-fatal but tense. A hiker startled a sow near a berry patch. A group found a day-old elk carcass, clearly claimed by a grizzly. Another reported a bear repeatedly circling their campsite at dusk. No attacks, not yet, but the signals were there. Subtle shifts in the bear's behavior, an increased boldness, an almost desperate need to feed. These weren't widely publicized, because that would create panic. It was all very hush-hush, and still, Doug and Jenny did what they always did, followed the rules to the absolute letter. They meticulously planned their meals to minimize scent. They carried 2 canisters of bear spray, 1 each, secured in quick-draw holsters. Every night, the food bag was hoisted with surgical precision, suspended between 2 trees at least 12 feet off the ground and 6 feet from any trunk. Cooking was done well away from their sleeping area, with all scraps scrupulously packed out, no trace left behind. These were not the actions of inexperienced hikers. They didn't take shortcuts. They didn't ignore warnings. They respected the land and the creatures that lived within it. But respect doesn't stop a grizzly, whose hunger drowns out fear. And hunger wasn't the only thing at play. Campfires had been banned weeks earlier due to the extremely dry conditions. Too dry, too risky, the park said, and without the flickering, dancing light of a campfire to push back the encroaching darkness. The nights were different, darker still, cold. Somewhere beyond the thin nylon of their tent, something stirred. Maybe it had caught their scent days earlier, following them from a distance, drawn in by the subtle aroma of their freeze-dried meals or the faint, musky smell of tris. Maybe it had crossed their path unnoticed, a fleeting shadow in the thick undergrowth. Or maybe it didn't matter why it came, only that it was close now, too close. The exact movements of the grizzly sow in the days leading up to the attack remain a mystery. Park officials knew of a 25-year-old female grizzly roaming these woods. She was tagged and monitored, but never flagged as a threat. She had no cubs, no history of aggressive encounters. She was simply a large, healthy, mature female grizzly. But something in her was changing. Doug and Jenny couldn't have known, as they meticulously prepared their final camp, that the last night of their journey was already beginning. The air grew heavy. A preternatural stillness settled over the valley, a silence so complete it almost hummed. The rustling of leaves, the chirping of crickets, the distant howl of a coyote, all gone, replaced by a void that pressed in on them, amplifying every creak of their tent, every rustle of fabric, every whispered word. A feeling of unease began to settle in, an itch at the back of the neck. October 1st, 2023, the date that would forever be etched in the annals of Banff National Park. As the sun dipped below the jagged peaks surrounding the Red Deer River Valley, casting long skeletal shadows across the forest floor, the temperature plummeted. A dry, brittle chill crept into the air, biting through layers of clothing and seeping into the bones. Doug and Jenny, veterans of countless nights in the wilderness, went about their routine with practiced efficiency. But tonight, the routine felt different, heavier, more fraught. Tris, usually calm and playful, remained unusually close, her ears constantly swiveling, a low growl rumbling deep in her chest. A silent signal, a primal warning that went unnoticed, or perhaps deliberately ignored. They were more than 20 kilometers from the nearest trailhead. No other hikers had been reported in the area for days. The nearest ranger station was hours away, accessible only by helicopter. They were truly, completely alone. And the forest watched, silent, unseen, patient. Somewhere in the gathering darkness, the grizzly sow moved. The hunger gnawing at her belly was a relentless, primal force, a driving impulse that overshadowed all else. The scent of food, faint but persistent, drifted on the still night air. The presence of the dog, an alien presence in her domain, sparked a flicker of irritation. And the tent, a strange, unnatural shape in the wilderness, represented an intrusion, a violation of her territory. The die was cast, the stage was set, and the night was about to deliver a horror they could never have imagined. The SOS, those three chilling words, bear attack bad, were just the beginning of a horrifying sequence of events. Received at 8:15 p.m., they triggered an immediate response from Parks Canada Dispatch. But the remote location, nestled deep within the Red Deer River Valley, presented an almost insurmountable challenge. A rescue helicopter was prepared for immediate deployment, but Mother Nature had other plans. A fierce storm system, a swirling vortex of wind, heavy cloud cover, and near-zero visibility had descended upon the valley. The skies, already black, had only become darker. flying was simply impossible. The risk was deemed far too great. Every agonizing second felt like an eternity. The team trapped, waiting for a break in the weather, fighting a battle against time. The hope, however fragile, was that Doug and Jenny had managed to fend off the bear, that they were injured but alive, huddled somewhere, clinging to hope. But dawn, when it finally broke, offered no solace. The grey light crept across the peaks, painting the valley in a somber hue. At first light, with the barest improvement in visibility, a specialized rescue team scrambled aboard a Parks Canada helicopter. The flight to the GPS coordinates of the distress signal was tense. The roar of the engine a deafening counterpoint to the dreadful anticipation. What they discovered upon arrival defies easy description. The scene was one of utter devastation. The tent, their sanctuary, had been reduced to a mangled heap of torn nylon and shattered poles. Gear was scattered haphazardly, a testament to a desperate struggle against an overwhelming force. It told a story of terror and violence, and then the grim discovery. The bodies of Doug, Jenny, and Triss were found nearby. There were no signs of escape, no indication that they had a chance to flee. The bear spray, their last line of defense, had been deployed. The acrid, telltale orange mist still hung faintly in the air, a ghostly reminder of their final act of defiance. They had fought back. They had used what they had. But it wasn't enough. This wasn't some clinical analysis in a report. This was a visceral, undeniable tragedy that had unfolded in the heart of the wilderness. It was clear this had been a brutal encounter with nature at its most unforgiving. As the rangers processed the scene, their minds raced. Had the bear fled? Was it still lurking nearby, waiting? Their senses were on high alert, acutely aware of the silence, the unnatural stillness of the woods. And then they spotted her. Approximately 200 meters from the ravaged campsite, partially concealed within the dense undergrowth, stood a large, grizzly sow. She was old, estimated to be around 25 years, and she was watching them. But it wasn't just that she was watching, it was how she was watching. She didn't bolt, didn't cower, didn't display the typical fear response that most grizzlies exhibit when confronted by humans. She stood her ground, her gaze unwavering, almost defiant. This was highly unusual behavior, alarmingly so. The rangers knew they had to make a split-second decision. With heavy hearts, Parks Canada officials made the difficult, but ultimately necessary, call. The bear was euthanized on the spot. The risk to other hikers, to the rescue team itself, was simply too high. It was a swift, tragic end for both the couple and the bear. An immediate investigation was launched. The bear's body was carefully examined, analyzed, but the results only deepened the mystery. The grizzly was a female, an adult, but she had no cubs. She displayed no signs of injury, no indication of disease. She wasn't emaciated, wasn't starving. This wasn't a mother protecting her young. This wasn't a desperate animal driven by hunger. Toxicology reports came back negative. No underlying illness, no pre-existing conditions that might explain the aberrant behavior. Just a healthy, mature grizzly sow. The attack appeared completely unprovoked. It defied all expectations, all understanding of grizzly behavior. This was a rogue attack, a freak occurrence. The first fatal grizzly attack in Banff National Park in over 4 decades. In the aftermath, the questions persisted, echoing through the silent valley. How could this have happened? What went wrong? Doug and Jenny had followed all the rules, all the guidelines. They were experienced, responsible hikers. They carried bear spray, used it. They stored their food properly. What more could they have done? Experts speculated on several factors. Had the grizzly been startled? Was she undergoing hyperphagia, the late-season feeding frenzy that drives bears to consume vast quantities of food in preparation for hibernation? Were there other environmental factors at play? Perhaps a shift in food sources, a disturbance in her territory. But ultimately, there were no definitive answers, no clear explanation for why this particular bear had acted in this particular way. It was a stark, chilling reminder of the unpredictable nature of the wild. A brutal demonstration that even the most careful preparations, the most diligent precautions, can be rendered meaningless in the face of a determined predator. In the days and weeks that followed, the news of Doug and Jenny's tragic deaths reverberated across the country, across the world. Tributes poured in from fellow hikers, conservationists, and friends. They were remembered as passionate outdoors people, dedicated scientists, and devoted partners. Their family, though devastated by their loss, issued a brief, heartfelt statement. They died doing what they loved. A simple sentiment, yet profoundly moving, capturing the essence of their lives. Parks, Canada, in the wake of the tragedy, conducted a thorough review of its safety protocols, its bear awareness programs. But ultimately, the investigation concluded that Doug and Jenny had done everything right. The tragedy served as a harsh reminder that even in the most pristine wilderness, danger can lurk, and that sometimes, despite all our best efforts, nature remains an untamable, unpredictable force. Doug and Jenny were laid to rest in their hometown of Lethbridge, Alberta. Their memory, however, lives on. Their names are now whispered with reverence in the hiking community, a somber reminder of the risks inherent in exploring the wild. Online, tributes poured in, from those who knew them personally and from complete strangers who had been inspired by their love of nature. Their photos circulated widely, Doug and Jenny smiling, hiking, camping, always together, always surrounded by the majestic beauty of the Canadian Rockies. Those three simple words, that desperate final message, bear attack bad, became a chilling epitaph. A stark reminder that in the vast, untamed wilderness, even the most experienced, the most prepared, can be vulnerable, and that sometimes the wild offers no second chances.